you want to see the tiniest Game Boy you've ever seen, then make sure to watch to the end. Look at that thing! Oh, the comparison! The side-by-side, it is literally half the height. No. It's kind of twisted at an angle, less than half the height.
What you're looking at is one of the tiniest devices I've ever played Super Nintendo games on. Not
Super Nintendo games you can play on this little thing. That's crazy.
the tiniest, but it's damn close. This is the ᵗᵦᵏ RG Nano. They heard about the Mii.
Okay. ᵗᵦᵏ RG Nano is what he said. Okay. That is so cool. Look at that. Look at the little shoulder buttons. Adorable. This thing is crazy.
Mini and decided, we can do you one better.
There it is.
Did they, though? I mean, it's impressive in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Just don't get too excited. It's
Why not? Tell me why I can't get excited. I am excited, darn it. I want to be excited. This thing is cute. It's adorable. It's the smallest form factor that I have seen in a long time. Well, with this many buttons, I think it is the smallest form factor I've ever seen. It's adorable. Why can't I be excited? Tell me.
pretty powerful for its size, playing all the way up to PlayStation 1 games.
All the way up to PlayStation 1. See, that's crazy. This is awesome. Why can't I get excited?
It's solid aluminum with solid construction. Its screen is also very pretty. It's a perfect square, which is pretty decent for Game Boy and
Amazing for the 4:3 ratio gameage. Yes, this is awesome. I fail to see why I cannot get excited. Tell me.
Game Boy Color games. It's a 1.5-inch 240 by 240 display.
Wow.
It's just impossibly tiny. It's so hard to see anything 16-bit and up on this thing.
That's fair.
The scaling also leaves a lot to be desired at 240 pixels squared.
I mean,
Let
yeah.
me back up a little bit. ᵗᵦᵏ currently sells this on their website for $66 plus $12 shipping if you're...
Hey, that's not that bad. For a really, really tiny form factor that can play all the way up to PlayStation 1, $66? That's really not that bad.
Here in the States. KeepRetro.com sells it for $73 with free shipping.
Okay.
They're the ones who sent it to me.
Okay.
And they also offer an affiliate link in the description below, which helps support this channel.
Nice.
Thank you very much. They sent it to me with a 64 gigabyte micro SD card that came loaded up with games. I'm pretty sure ᵗᵦᵏ does the same thing.
That's
It runs
cool.
on an OS that reminds me a lot of the Pocket Go OS. Remember that thing? That was like the second emulation handheld I ever used.
I've never even heard of Pocket Go. Actually, no. Maybe I have. I think I've heard of it one time. Yeah, it's not the prettiest interface, but, you know, it'll do.
So it's not great. I frequently mess up the menu. Why is back not B?
Oh.
It's the start button,
Oh,
but there are built-in
back is the start button. That doesn't even make sense. Start should be start. It shouldn't be back. That's counterintuitive.
themes. I started using this minimal one that I like a lot. It's actually
Okay.
so similar to the FunKey S that you can just take the FunKey OS and slap it on here. But all that would do is remove the watch splash screen that shows at boot. So
Okay.
I think the OSs are more or less the same besides the watch.
Okay.
Removing that would make booting a little bit quicker. So maybe that would be worth it. Currently, there is no custom firmware for this thing. What you get on here is just what you get.
There it is.
Black Seraph, who makes the custom firmware for the
Bringing Garlic OS to this one will be tricky but fun. Interesting. Okay.
Mii Mini, the Mii Mini Plus, and the RG35XX, among other very popular devices. He says that he is working on custom firmware for the RG Nano, but
I love the modding community for these devices and just kind of retro tech and emulation tech in general. There's such a heavy modding community, and it's brilliant. I love it. I love what people can do. They're so ingenuitive. They take something, they make it better. They make it more creative. They change or tweak one little aspect, and it's like, okay, now I really want this device, or I really want this software on this device because it fits so well. Like, oh man, modding is just so cool.
admits it's going to be very difficult to get one of his custom firmwares on here.
Okay.
But I'm not sure how necessary that would be. This thing doesn't have a sleep function by default, but it boots up very, very quick. Okay, maybe not as quick as I was saying it does.
Just look at this thing in his hand. It's so cute. Oh, man. I shouldn't say that this manly gaming tech is cute, but it absolutely is. You caught me. It's adorable. It's absolutely adorable.
There it goes. And it resumes the game right from where you left off. So it's basically like a sleep.
That's nice.
You can back out of games and open up other games, and it'll save your spot in all of the different games. It also has save states across any games that you want. It's also super easy to navigate the menus.
That's really nice. Save states for any games. Save right where you are when you turn it off to when you turn it back on. That's really cool.
On this thing, if you're using one of the themes, but also the settings in each emulator. There's not many settings, but the ones that you need are there. So I'm not really sure that you need custom firmware, but maybe the custom firmware can fix some of the other litany of problems that we have.
Okay.
Since filming.
Okay, we're lining up to hear all the problems. Come on, listen up, everybody. There's problems. We need to know what they are because it's adorable. I want to get one, so tell me why I shouldn't.
All of this, ᵗᵦᵦ released an update. It's a very easy update to do, but nothing changed. It's supposed to make things a little smoother.
Okay.
I haven't noticed anything, and there's still no scaled option for Super Nintendo games.
Okay.
So everything I say still stands.
But then, since filming that, this all happened today. They released some sort of custom firmware thing
By a Japanese GitHub user named
gameboy
or something.
Okay.
This is supposed to lower the CPU clock speed by 10%. So it brings it from 90 to 80 in Super Nintendo, which would be really cool.
It didn't seem like it did much when I tested it just now. Yoshi's
Okay.
Island still runs pretty bad, and Mega Man X3 also is still choppy. Maybe a little better.
I had to do a lot of Google Translate, but I mean, it's a marginal increase in performance. It's not
Okay.
going to do too much. So everything I say still stands.
So it's got some choppiness. It's not exactly the smoothest hardware it's running on. Okay, good to know. Good to know.
Inside the box, it came with a keychain, because of course it did. Wouldn't it be great to just put this thing on your keys? That wouldn't cause any problems at all. And a USB-C charging cable and a USB-C headphone dongle, because this thing...
I feel like they just include the keychain just to show you how small it is. Like, look at this tiny little thing. It's small enough to fit in your pocket. It's basically a keychain. I think that's the only reason, because if you actually put this in your pocket, you know it's getting thrashed, like he said.
thing is so small, they forgot to put a headphone jack in it.
Ah,
Wait, these headphones don't fit. What the hell? You serious? That's useless.
oh, well, there you
The
go.
buttons feel fine. The D-pad feels exactly like that fantastic ᵗᵦᵦ D-pad that I love,
Okay.
but it's very, very tiny. So not at all like that D-pad. There are
Yeah, I mean, you're obviously going to have those issues with a device this small, right? I mean, you're not going to be able to accurately press those buttons like you want to because it's just so tiny. Adult hands, big thumbs, big man thumbs, you know? It's not going to work as well as you would hope, I'm sure.
There are super clicky L and R buttons at the top.
Ooh, I like
but
that.
no L2 and R2.
Eh,
So PS1 games are a bit rough.
I
Not
guess
that you'd want to play them on something this tiny anyway. The button
that looks so choppy anyway. I don't know that you want to play PlayStation 1 games on this thing. Oh, man. Okay, it's slowly slipping down the slope of attractiveness to me right now. I'm not really that into it anymore.
press well, but this device is far from comfortable. It's a novelty.
Yeah.
It's very hard to play because of how smushed together everything is.
Makes
But
sense.
most of all, I just can't fucking see anything. It's
Yeah.
tiny,
Yeah.
but scaling is also so bad on this thing. Lines of pixels just straight up get deleted.
Ah,
But more than that, the square aspect ratio is a detriment to everything besides Game Boy games.
Okay.
Most emulators on here have aspect ratio options that are easily accessible from the side button menu.
Yeah, yeah.
So you can add letterboxing to make the current console the correct aspect ratio. This can mess up scaling sometimes, but it feels necessary to have.
Interesting. Yeah, so the aspect ratio thing, I thought having it perfectly square would be better, but I guess not. That kind of sucks. Yeah. There's a lot of dings against this little device now, and it's starting to make sense what he said, right? It's more of a novelty. Yeah, I guess you would want to go for something more like the Analog Pocket or something like that. Something that's really, really geared towards being like the perfect experience for that kind of generation or two of retro gaming. versus something like this, which is just like, look, it's small, and we put hardware in it that can kind of run all these games. Wow, isn't that great? Well, maybe not so much, because it doesn't run them all that great, and it's not comfortable to play. It's just cool to show off to your friends, hey, look, I have this tiny device that can do this.
Super Nintendo has no scaled aspect ratio option.
Ooh.
For some stupid reason.
Ooh.
That means you have to play it to either stretched 1x1 or cropped.
Oh, that
That's
sucks.
like an abomination.
Yeah.
You might not even want to use this for Super Nintendo because it plays games like Mega Man X3 pretty poorly.
Yeah, that's choppy
There was a
as
decent
heck.
amount of stuttering, but what was worse was I just couldn't hold the thing in a way where I felt comfortable hitting the buttons.
Yeah, that
The
does.
Nano didn't come.
That does not look comfortable at all, honestly. Like, seeing how bent up his thumbs were as he was playing, yeah, that's not a good gaming experience, I agree.
With Yoshi's Island, which is why I was testing it with Mega Man X3 instead, because that has a similar Super Effects type chip in there.
Okay.
But I put Yoshi's Island on here anyway, just for the novelty, because I got to do the test. And it ran very bad. It ran the CPU to 100%, which is insane.
Woo!
Because PS1 emulation didn't even come close to that.
Oh,
Game Boy
man.
Advance emulation is okay. Gunstar Superheroes ran pretty bad, a low frame rate, and I think I see some graphical artifacts.
Wow. So this thing is not very good at emulation. Like, really, really not that good. And that kind of drops it all the way down, because what's the point of an emulation device if it doesn't do emulation very well? You know what I mean? Like, not even one generation well? Like, I wonder how it does with Game Boy games. I would like to see.
The Game Boy Advance audio is very bad, which is the fault of the emulation.
Okay.
The audio sounds really bad.
The tiny little speaker on this
Yeah.
thing is actually pretty beefy. It sounds pretty great for how tiny it is. I'm very impressed by that.
Okay.
If you were a stickler for emulation quality, I would only ever consider getting this thing if you're only gonna play like Game Boy games on it, and that.
Okay, so there it is. So he kind of confirmed my theory there. So basically, all it's really good for is Game Boy games, and not much else. I'm confused why they even made this if they're not even going to try and make the hardware fit the kind of scope that they're going for. It's really weird.
That's it. And even at that price point, there's plenty of other great emulation options out there you should probably consider over this thing.
Yeah.
Like the Miu Mini Plus or the RG35XX. Or the
There you go, guys. If you're looking for an option that does these generations of emulators, but is a lot better of a device, he gave them to you. There you go.
regular Miu Mini. This is really only for the novelty.
Yeah.
But you know what? I did say that the Miu Mini was my favorite emulation console of last year because of just how portable it was. The best emulation console is the one that you have with you. And I still carry that thing around with me to this day because I can just fit it anywhere. It's always in my bag because it takes up no space at all.
Yep.
And the RG Nano takes that to the next level. Look,
Yeah, I mean, it really is like super tiny. This is super tiny form factor. You take tiny, the Miu Mini that he was talking about, and then you get this thing, the RG Nano, and it is just super tiny. Like, look, he's gonna put it that tiny pocket on a man's. I don't know if women's pants have this. I'm not sure. I don't wear women's pants, so I'm not sure. But on men's pockets, there's like a tiny pocket inside of your main pocket that's meant to be for pocket watches. And this thing is the size of a pocket watch. He's gonna stick it in there right now.
look, it can fit perfectly in the tiny change pocket of my skinny jeans.
Maybe it is a change pocket. I always thought it was for pocket watches, but who knows?
It can almost fit in my mouth the long ways.
That's crazy.
But with the Miu Mini, I was willing to put aside what it was lacking in ergonomics in favor of that big buff to portability. The
Yeah.
RG Nano has an even bigger buff to portability, but it lacks even more in ergonomics, and I'm not willing to set aside what it's lacking in ergonomics in favor of this even greater portability. There needs to be a balance,
Yeah.
and this just don't got it.
Yeah, so this device takes it over the edge is what he's saying, right? So there's definitely a line you can ride with the ergonomics where it's actually comfortable and fun to play versus alongside portability. And yeah, it sounds like this device just takes it over the edge, right? So it's really just not ergonomic to play. It like hurts your hands. You probably cramp up in the thumbs and the like palm by the thumb region. Yeah, I could definitely see this being a hand cramp situation.
It's just not practical at all.
Yeah.
Where the RG35XX and the Miu Mini Plus are comfortable, but just a tad too big to be my everyday carry.
Okay.
The Nano is too small and uncomfortable. It's the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Making the Miu Mini the perfect in-between.
I loved his video on this device, the Miu Mini. So basically what I'm hearing is this is still the perfect emulation device for like your everyday emulator. And it does so many devices too. I mean, look at it, right? Game Boy Advance, Genesis, you got the Game & Watch Game Boy. I'm guessing that's original Famicom, Game Gear, Game Boy Color. Like, this thing is perfect. It's absolutely perfect. If you need an everyday gaming device, the Miu Mini sounds like the one to go to still.
However, those are unavailable. And I wouldn't recommend buying a Miu Mini upcharged to all hell on eBay. I'd still just recommend the RG35XX or the Miu Mini Plus.
Okay, there you go. Miu Mini Plus or the RG35XX. There you go. Those are the devices he's recommending.
Over getting something like this.
Okay.
The Nano just straight up feels unplayable at times, mostly because of just how uncomfortable it is.
Yeah.
But also because the emulation quality is not great. I said it was...
Yeah, I mean, we saw that in the video, right? He's just kind of beating a dead horse here because he's already shown it very clearly. But yeah, that emulation quality was absolutely horrendous. I mean, we're looking at PlayStation, we're looking at Super Nintendo. The big games for Super Nintendo, it usually is Yoshi's Island. That's the one that people show off with an emulation hardware, and it did absolutely horrible. Like it was showing, it was spiking all the way up to 100% and staying there. So it just is not really the best emulation hardware out there, not even close. And if it's also unergonomic, I would say stay away from this device. It is not for you unless you just absolutely want it for novelty. That's the only reason. But what do you guys think? Is that device a must buy or is it a hard pass? Let me know in the comments. Leave a like, a subscribe, and I will see you next time.